Splatoon is a wonderfully creative game. If my playtime doesn't make it obvious enough, I love this game. Even if I lose, a lot, but it's fun. It's fast, it has so many different ways to play, and it shows a very clear level of creativity from Nintendo. The newest title has a sniper that is shaped like a pencil that is called a snipe writer. That is so funny. And something that really shines about this franchise's creativity is its art, which is understandable. The gameplay is about painting better than others. It's an art war, which is ironically a great way to describe the video game market. Put simply, video games are a form of art. I mean, of course, they're a technological feat first and foremost, but as the creators are figuring out the tech, they also have to figure out how to get that tech into the common household. The Magnavox Odyssey, the Atari, the Nintendo Entertainment System, these were some of the oldest and most popular gaming consoles that entered the common person's house. Additionally, all of these were very crucial in figuring out how to make video games accessible, but they were also the start of these competing campaigns trying to convince the public that their game box was the best game box. These companies created differences in each of their consoles, and they found novelties that would appeal to different audiences that they hoped would make their box the better box in the public's eye. Like, for example, the Nintendo. It had a zapper attachment that connected to the system that you could aim at the television and it would be able to fire at objects in the game, which for the 80s is incredibly impressive. It's this principle of emerging creativity that drives the story told at Frisco's National Video Game Museum. Immediately upon entering, you are met with a wall of consoles, alongside monitors that have brief descriptions of each of the displayed consoles. These monitors are even controlled by comically large Super Nintendo controllers, and in that vein, there is classic video game paraphernalia everywhere you look. Controllers, posters, game boxes, accessories, you name it. And every corner you turn has a console loaded with a game free for you to play. Though it's not necessarily about the game itself. Each display and demo has a blurb on the console or the situation and context that surrounds the experience of play. The game is simply a way to let you experience that. Now, to put it in context, the museum is split into a number of sections. They're called stages, each one with a different common theme. Some standouts are the VR stage, demonstrating the progression of virtual reality. There's the portable stage, which showcases the evolution of handheld products. Then there's the arcade stage, which is a demonstration of the arcade game atmosphere. But even that's only scratching the surface of how many stages are at this museum. By now, I'm sure the question being asked is, where does Splatoon fit in? Well, it doesn't. Or at least, it wouldn't fit into any of the already existing stages. But the National Video Game Museum is missing a large stage that came with the experience video games brought. Motion controls. Motion controls have had a long history, and I bet if you asked someone when that history started, you'd get a lot of different answers. But I would assume most would probably tell you it started with the Wii in 2006. And that's not necessarily wrong. That's definitely where motion controls got into the swing of things. The swing of things, like swinging the... Okay, so anyways, to really trace back the history of motion controls, we'll need to take it back about 2 more decades, to the 80s. Motion controls had been experimented with since the arcade era, with games like Heavyweight Champ, a boxing game, and Hang On, a motorcycle racer that inspired a new full genre of motion control racing games which you can still see in arcades today. At the same time, home consoles were also trying to implement that idea of motion controls to their games. There was the Atari with a controller called the Less Stick, which worked as a motion control-based joystick, and even Nintendo started their motion control attempts with their infamous Power Glove. Then came the 2000s, and we start seeing home consoles start to pick up their game. The PlayStation 2 got an accessory called an iToy, which was a camera that could track your movement. It was fairly limited, but all in all, it worked well, especially for a home console. Then, Nintendo came back again, and this time, they were really playing with power. Now, we finally hit the Wii, which Nintendo followed with the Wii U, then with the Switch, all of which had built-in motion controls that got more accurate with each new console. The success of the Wii even got the other big names to want in on the action, Microsoft making the Xbox Kinect and Sony making controllers called the PlayStation Move. After the burst of unique motion controllers that followed the Wii, they started implementing motion controls into standard console controllers. By today, it's practically expected that a controller comes with built-in motion controls. All this is to say, motion controls had huge ripples throughout all reaches of gaming. So then where is the motion control stage in the National Video Game Museum? With all of the history, it's safe to say that the museum could easily add a stage for motion controls, and would easily benefit from the addition. But then the important part is how to demo it. Each of their exhibits has a way to experience the history. Whether it was Wario Land on Nintendo's Virtual Boy, or Halo on the Xbox, they have a way for you to experience that point in video game history firsthand. Now, there are many choices for motion control games, among many different generations, but I think Splatoon fits the bill perfectly. Obviously, there are a lot of games that utilize motion controls, but not many of those games are using motion controls to redefine a genre. Splatoon is a shooter. I mean, I suppose that was obvious, but just looking at the gameplay, it might not seem that way sometimes. Splatoon is a shooter, but it's a shooter where shooting the enemies is only a small portion of the game. Especially in the main game mode Turf War, the only way to win is having the most floor covered in the time limit. In this case, you don't need the precise aim you need in a game like Call of Duty or Valorant or Overwatch. In fact, it's more advantageous the more widespread your line of fire is, which is where the motion controls come in. Nintendo created a shooter centered around motion controls, dropping the need for precise aim and creating a completely new experience in the shooter genre that relied on wide sweeps of ink shots rather than carefully placed headshots. I think this use of a control type to completely change a genre would perfectly tie this motion control display together. And now the final step is to choose which Splatoon should be demoed. I think Splatoon 2 would be their best choice. The first reason being the console. Splatoon 1 is on the Wii U. The Wii U already has a demo on the floor, which is a copy of Minecraft Wii U Edition in the art showcase. The Switch, however, is missing a spot on the floor. The closest there is to a Switch demo is a copy of Smash Bros. Ultimate to play, but it's in a side room and doesn't even belong to a stage, nor does it have a blurb about its story. So, with the Switch being our motion control rep, it's now down to Splatoon 2 and 3. These two games are very similar in their experience, and at first glance it looks like you just have to choose one at random, but there is one important aspect to these games. 3 is not finished. 3 is current history that is still being made with events and community activities, downloadable content still on the way, and regular updates. Splatoon 2 has completed its run. It's now at its final update, its final version, and it's reached the point where its history can and should be preserved. Splatoon is a franchise that took the shooter genre, grabbed the idea of motion-controlled aiming, and created an experience that perfectly showcased the evolution and naturalization of this unique control type. Splatoon 2 is a game that followed up, evolved, and doubled down on the ideas and technology of its predecessor, and I think that is an experience that tells the story that drives the National Video Game Museum. In all honesty, even outside of the motion controls, I can't imagine Splatoon doesn't make its way into the National Video Game Museum one day. Splatoon is a series that Nintendo released in 2015. It has already gotten 2 sequels, exclusive lines of merch, multiple tournaments and championships. It has become one of Nintendo's big franchises, and it hasn't even been a decade. I think it's really only a matter of time before Inklings and Octolings are shown in the spotlight alongside Mario and Link. Hey, thank you for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed my school project, and I hope you learned something. Yeah, as soon as I was told my final was going to be a video game history video essay, I was so ready. Yeah, big thanks to Weewa Art for the avatar. You can find him on Twitter, and a link to the picker that I used will be in the description. And as well, a huge shout out to Don't Save the Game on YouTube. He made an amazingly comprehensive guide on the history of motion controls, and it's so well put together, so well sourced. I recommend checking it out. It definitely helped me piece together the history and find out a lot more about the subject. And that's all. I hope you have a good morning, day, or night, and see you next time.